So if government is the offensive use of gun violence, and you don't believe in the offensive use of guns, then what do? Don't we need government? Yes, I'd say we need government. But the question we need to ask ourselves is, do we need a coercive government structure which divides the people into warring factions like we have today? There are many forms of government, and I would posit the most effective form of government is the one you use every single day: your freedom to choose. All human beings must rely on each other to live a happy and productive life in our modern day American economy. We are no longer subsistent farmers working the land and knitting our own clothing. Our economy has evolved so much that in order to maintain our modern standard of living, our lives are now all intertwined. You might work in a factory assembling a car, but you didn't produce the steel which goes into the car. But just as our economy has evolved and made lives richer, so too has our culture. Culture is the foundation for the peace and prosperity you enjoy in your life today. In any culture, there will always be a common set of values which the people use to guide their interactions with each other. It is usually this common set of values shared amongst the people which unifies them in the formation of a government. In America, the vast majority of individuals believe murder, theft, rape, coercion, and fraud are wrong. These are the universal set of values our culture holds and from which most people use to guide their interactions with others. In America, refraining from murder, rape, and theft is unanimously expected behavior. Our culture is such that people who violate the humanity of others are quickly ostracized from society, not just by the governing institutions established by our culture to punish those actions, but by almost everyone in that person's life. How many friends do you have that are rapists, murderers, and who use coercion on a daily basis? I'm going to guess you don't have any, as people with those values are so outside the norm of our culture that our culture shames and punishes them to prevent people from acting in the momentary desire to murder, steal, rape, or use coercion. It is these universally agreed upon values which guide most everyone's freedom of association, which is their freedom to choose. Cultural values represent the foundation which determines if our society will be peaceful and free from mass forms of aggression or not. Your safety is reliant upon the values of the people around you, not government. In general, your ability and willingness to defend yourself may not be enough to stop somebody else's offensive actions. The police and laws in most cases do not prevent aggressive acts. For the most part, what prevents another person from being violent against you is the values which the other person holds. The best defense you have against another potentially violent human being is that their ethics and culture has taught and incentivized them to not be violent in the first place. Cultural values keep you safe, not governments. In fact, one of the greatest lies ever perpetrated by politicians onto the people is that we need them to keep us safe, that in order to maintain our peace and prosperity, we must surrender our freedom to their coercive gun violence. But the truth is, governments don't protect you. Government-created wars and famines purposely murdered over 262 million people in the 20th century alone. Now, I know many people don't trust capitalism for various reasons, but let me ask you this. How many free market companies were directly responsible for the murder of even 1 million people in the last century, let alone 262 million? Most believe governments are established to keep us safe. But are you really ever safe when governments use the money they steal from you to build machines that are solely designed to murder humans, and then start global wars that kill hundreds of millions? Many will argue that without government, the guys with the biggest guns will control society. But under what system of logic does it make sense that in order to prevent men with guns from controlling society, we vote in men with guns to control society? To believe humans are so fallible and devious they need regulating ignores the question of what makes the regulators so noble. Do the regulators not belong to the same human race as the people they claim need regulating? How can you hold the contradictory belief that human beings can't be trusted and then trust human beings to govern human beings? Furthermore, if humans can't be trusted with the control of their own actions and therefore need regulating, why can't their votes to control the actions of others be trusted? And also, from where does democracy gain its legitimacy? No one should have the right or ability to hire a politician to control the action and property and freedom of others. At what point does democracy become legitimate? Should there be a minimum of 50 people voting to give democracy legitimacy? Can you and 50 of your friends create your own democracy? Create your own laws? Hire armed revenue agents to start taking money from each other? And what if a couple of your friends object to the revenue agents? Are you justified in using gun violence to steal their money? Can your newfound democracy be used to prevent me from selling my land to a developer who's going to make new homes to respond to the market demand? Or is 50 people not enough? Would 50,000 be enough to create a democracy? If there is a minimum number needed to legitimize democracy, is there a maximum? Is 100 million or 300 million or 500 million too unwieldy for the idea of democracy? What about the idea of constitutionalism? Am I to be bound by a contract I never signed, which was created by men who died over 200 years ago? Is that really how contracts work? That men you've never met, men that died before toilets were invented, can agree to terms which you are legally bound by? And if that's the case, I'm going to buy a Ferrari, and by the virtue of mythical democratic republican constitutionalism, you all are going to pay for it. The legitimacy of voting is more fictitious than Star Wars. The struggles over democracy are fundamentally destroying the character and fabric of our culture. High morals and character are absolutely critical to a civil society. No amount of governmental gun violence or votes can lead to these ideals in a sustainable way. Having a third-party mechanism where individuals can vote to control others ensures a divided and polarized culture where everyone scrambles to control the levers of the state for their own benefit and at the expense of morality, trust, and civility. So governmental values are regressive and directly opposed to the values you use every day. Governments don't keep you safe. In fact, politicians use the money they steal from you to build weapons designed to murder humans. Governmental ethics have resulted in the slaughter of 262 million people in the last 118 years. Democracy has zero legitimacy and is dividing our culture in a never-ending struggle to exercise the state's course of abilities. So how do we ensure peace and safety when government is violence? How do we promote unity when democracy divides? The answer can be found in a cultural evolution to the libertarian social philosophy. In the next video, we will look into who the true modern-day American progressives are and the cultural evolution they wish to peacefully inspire.